Awesome. Wonderful. So welcome everybody. So we'll get started. Catherine, my assistant, is going to let people in as they arrive, and that's cool. So I'm really happy to introduce this roundtable. It feels like the first one that we've done in a while. And it was really cool because when we first started talking about this idea of doing podcasting as a topic for a roundtable, because of the intersection, with podcasting and your online marketing overall, when we first started talking about doing this, and I reached out to a few people to see who might be interested in joining as speakers, I had such an enthusiastic response that we had to divvy it up into a two-parter. So we're doing part one today, which is going to be around attracting and engaging listeners and setting some sort of strategy around that. And then part two is going to be more around the conversion piece and how you can turn all of those loyal listeners into something that's actually going to bring in some revenue. So we will get started right away, and I don't know if I need to change my screen. I'm just going to leave it for now. Wait, Catherine, can you pin the other speakers for today? Do you have the ability to do that? We're sort of playing around a little bit here, everybody. So we had a last minute cancellation for one of our speakers today. She was on vacation and got food poisoning, which is terrible news. And I was really looking forward to having her insight. She does a lot around the use of AI tools for podcasting and content creation and stuff. So that would have been kind of neat. So we'll see if we can sort of feature some of her insights later on, maybe later this week or next week, whenever she's feeling a little bit better. So for today, welcome everybody. We're going to give Andre and James a minute to introduce themselves, and then I will introduce myself. So are we ready to go, Catherine? You're muted.
Pardon, has the pin worked there?
I don't know.
Are the members seeing 3 people or all people?
I see speaker.
It's a nods. Multi-speaker. I don't know. I'm not really sure which one gets recorded. That's one of those little details that I keep forgetting to figure out.
Yeah.
Well, let's give her and we'll see. All right. So Andre, would you like to start and introduce yourself, please?
My name is Andre Brisson. I'm the Impulsive Thinker. I'm a recovering engineer who doesn't fit in the traditional engineering world. And I'm also the host of the Impulsive Thinker podcast for the growth-minded ADHD entrepreneur, and also help ADHD entrepreneurs have a better grasp of themselves and take ownership of their uniqueness.
Fantastic. Welcome, Andre. And James.
Yep. Am I coming through okay?
Yes, you are. It's perfect.
Perfect. My name is James Warnken. I am a digital accessibility consultant. I have lived with a visual impairment for the last 18 years, so I've progressively been losing my vision. Started my career in the digital marketing space, specifically in the world of design and development with websites and SEO and advertising and all of that kind of fun stuff, before shifting into digital accessibility and making sure that every user has the same equal great experience.
Nice. Cool. And James, is it true that you have a podcast as well, or did you have one? And
I've been on so many of them. The company that I currently work with, called Apex Communications Network, has been podcasting since 2019. It's not my podcast, but it's the team's.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay, very cool. Excellent. Wonderful. Well, I'm really happy to have you guys here. My name is Steph. I'm the founder of Clarity Web Design Studio. We're based in Nova Scotia in Canada. So we have one guest today who's in Ontario, right, Andre? And then James is down in the States. So we've got a nice little spread.
International discussion.
That's right. And yeah, we're all about making websites that work. And we support primarily female founders in having findable and functional websites. So this conversation is super interesting to me because so many people are getting into podcasting, and so many people don't really have a good strategy around how to connect it, or if they should connect it with their website. So I was really, because I don't podcast myself, I was really, really interested in seeing what experts like yourselves who have been in this kind of area for a while might be able to offer to all of these people that want to get into podcasting or are doing podcasting and kind of just, throwing stuff at the wall, waiting to see what's going to stick. So then also with us today, we have Catherine Ryan, who is my assistant here at Clarity. She is also in Nova Scotia, and she's going to be keeping an eye on the chat and doing anything that we ask her to do. Right, Catherine?
Hello,
And,
yep, I'm here.
Wonderful. And hopefully she'll keep me on some sort of a time tracking as well. So the person that we were also hoping to have, I'll just do a quick little intro for her as well, because she couldn't be here. Her name is Susan Diaz. Her company is called Peaceful AI Marketing, and she does podcasting, and she does a lot of work around AI tools to help make your job a little bit easier. So we might see some content from her. You know, we might send something out if we can put something together. She wasn't well to attend today, unfortunately. So we're just going to have to take up her space.
Yeah, I use
So I'm sure
AI
we can
tools
manage.
too in post-production.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm sure it's not it's not brand new anymore, right? So why don't we get started? So I have a question that I would like to sort of put out there, and James and Andre, you can jump in. And this is a very informal, conversational sort of a thing. You can talk over me, you can talk over each other. We'll just try to keep it polite. And the main thing that I would like, just to as a reminder, is you know, we want to make sure that the stuff that we talk about, we're not using a lot of jargon. I'd like to keep it sort of really simple and clear. So if we can sort of pretend you're talking to me, who doesn't really know a lot about podcasting, honestly, other than what my clients do, then that would be fantastic. So my first question to get us off, this is like kind of a heavy one. How do you attract the right audience to your podcast? The right
Depends
audience
on the
being,
type of audience you want. Like I
okay.
tell people, if you're looking for subscribers and likes and clicks and you're searching that, then your tactic is different and a lot more marketing is required. But my intent was to build this on impact only, and I want specific listeners to listen. I don't care if there's 10,000 people downloading it and but 2 are listening. I'm okay getting 2 listeners on my metrics if they're truly listening. And if you're out there for impact and not popularity, then that will come with time. And it's kind of the one thing I learned, everyone shares podcasts that they enjoyed, or they'll share with someone they think will benefit someone. And only if your intent is to impact people's lives, that will get through, but it's a smaller start, but it'll become an exponential launch.
Nice.
Yeah, and
So yeah, James.
I would tend to agree with that. It really is, who are you trying to reach? How are you trying to reach them? Is podcasting the avenue that they're consuming content through? Because a lot of people listen to podcasts, but some people are casual listeners. Some people listen to learn and to grow. What type of audience are you trying to attract? And are they driving to work? Are they in the middle of a workout? Are they walking their dog? Try to think a little bit beyond just who has the headphones in. What are they doing? What types of things do they enjoy? And try to put yourself in that audience if you can, and really try to frame your approach, your marketing, your strategy, your advertising, whatever it is you're doing to push that around that, to try to get them to your page. Getting them to your page is the hardest part. Getting them to listen and to stay, if you have good content, is pretty easy.
Oh,
And
interesting.
you gotta be clear on who your avatar is. Like at the beginning, who cares about the audience? Who's your avatar? Who are you speaking to? And if you keep that consistent, like for me, it's highly successful growth mindset ADHD entrepreneurs. It's not just anyone with ADHD, because now it's a shotgun effect to hope to see if it's applicable to anyone. But if you really tie into that one avatar and communicate to that avatar on every episode, I hate to use the term stragglers, but the ones that are on the outside, they do listen and it will follow. And that gives you consistency on your messaging and the storytelling. Because I know quite a few friends, they're having issues finding followers because they weren't too clear on who their avatar was. So, if I'm listening, oh, this time it's for me, next time it's completely different, and people get confused. And when they start getting confused on the message or who they're talking to, I think that's where you can start losing your audience.
Yep.
Nice.
And all of the videos that I make are geared towards professionals that want to make their content accessible.
Yeah.
And so all of my interviews, videos, anything that I do, it all sort of pushes back to that avatar of you're a developer, a designer, you're somebody in a professional IT role looking to make your stuff more accessible to people with disabilities. So consistency is definitely key with your audience, but also with your scheduling and your publishing. If you post sporadically on the first Friday of this month, the second Tuesday of this month, the algorithms that all of us are playing their game are not going to know what to do with that. And so there is a little bit of finesse and planning and strategy that does go into it to make sure that people come to expect your content every Friday at 3 p.m., every Tuesday at 4. You want to try to build that in from the beginning to build that continuity, that reliable user experience as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like how you guys are both referring to it.
Sorry, I just want to build on two things that James said. Like,
Sure.
James, a question to you is when you got to that avatar and you start communicating, did you find like these strategic products of listeners? Like for me, I started getting feedback from people who actually don't have ADHD. Now I understand my spouse better. Now I understand my boss better. Now I know how to help my kid. So, but still speaking to that avatar, everyone else that is involved in the sphere of that avatar are also, those were surprise listeners for me.
Yep. Yep. Same thing here. I talk very technical, very accessibility focused, and people with disabilities tend to gravitate towards my content, and they learn how to advocate better for themselves through my content because they're picking up some of those terms, some of those things, and that is consistent. I think just in general across marketing is you're going to pick up secondary and tertiary audiences. For example, I have a disability. My wife is an advocate because of me. So she will find something that is in the grocery store. This happened multiple times. Been in the grocery store, product packaging has Braille on it. She'll buy it just because it has Braille on it and she wants to show it to me.
Oh, that's cool.
And so you do pick up multiple different audiences, maybe that aren't your ideal customer, but they know your ideal customer. Their spouse or their brother or their sister, their best friend, their boss, whoever that is. And going back to what Andre said at the top, they're going to share that with them. They're going to tell them about it. Word of mouth is still probably one of the most powerful marketing strategies out there.
Yeah, agreed. I love how you guys were both talking about avatars, because that's something we do a lot with the web design sort of thing as well, where we're trying to get really clear on what your messaging is and how you can sort of deliver that. And the consistency piece, I think, is really fun. So what I was told by someone else that I know who does some podcasting, she said that she finds it really helpful to have those personas. She calls them customer personas instead of avatars. She has them on a little sticky note right on her computer, so that when she's creating any content, whether it's on a podcast or for the website, like a blog or whatever, or writing a newsletter, she can remind herself that she's speaking directly to that person. And it's a person. It's not like some generic sort of ghostly figure. It's a very specific person. And then that helps you to keep your language a lot more consistent. Do you have tools like do you just remember who your avatar is, like Andre?
My avatar is me 10 years ago.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Right. So
Sure.
I try to get the information I would have loved to have had 10 years ago. So that
Nice.
makes it simpler. But yeah, naming the avatar or someone you know that has those characteristics makes it a lot easier to remember for sure.
Yeah. Cool.
And for me, I've trained hundreds of IT developers, designers, like in person, virtually. I've trained a lot of people on accessibility. And so I usually will just take the questions that I get asked at the end of the training and try to create conversations offline, online, wherever around those topics. So if you look, I don't call them podcasts, but I guess that's kind of what it is. I do interviews with different accessibility professionals where I talk about uncommon topics within accessibility. And so I've done one on the bridge between physical and digital accessibility. I've done ones talking about what's coming from Microsoft in terms of accessibility, because those are questions that people ask me, and then I find a professional within my network that I know is an expert in that. I'm not an expert in all things accessibility, and we just have a very organic conversation like what we're doing now. And that turns into, I call them interviews. There's a video and an audio component to them. So podcast didn't necessarily feel right at the beginning, but in theory, that's what it is. It's audio video content going out there for a purpose.
That's really interesting. Andre, I think your podcast is on YouTube as well, right? Can you speak a little bit about that combined?
Yeah, that was my my podcast hosting. Lipsing just said, hey, by the way, we got this new feature. We'll convert the audio to a video and we'll push it. So I said, sure. Right.
What do you mean they convert it?
It would convert. So it'd take at the time, I'd take the image, my podcast image, convert the audio track into a video to be put, and it would push on YouTube. So I said, sure, I'll do that.
Wait, sorry. No, I don't get it. You mean like a static image of you?
It'll be a static image of
voiceover.
The logo of the podcast logo.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. And then I said, yeah, let's do that. And then we started seeing the ratings were kind of going up, and then we had the Zoom videos recorded. So then we uploaded those, and that improved. And then, now I'm on YouTube and I'm doing some short content right now, but once I get more time, I'm going to be doing the longer content like James. I want to just start talking with smart people. Because the other thing too is what I figured out was we need the audience, right? We need the audience. We need that avatar. We need that persona. But in the end, I don't think that's the most important thing to worry about first. The podcaster, you have a selfish reason for doing the podcast. And selfish is positive or negative, depending on the context, okay? So I'm using the word selfish. My selfish reason for the podcast was there's nothing out there about the high-achieving ADHD entrepreneur. So I'm just going to talk to smart people who have an idea about this so I can learn more. That's my goal. As long as I'm learning, my listeners are learning. So that's my selfish need. So as long as that need is satisfied, my tone, my interest is projected. Now, for listenership and viewership, now we have to pay attention to the audience, the persona. But I don't think, like I got a couple of friends, they didn't really have a selfish reason for their personal needs. It was to help everyone else. And that's where it kind of seems scattered on the content. But once the one actually said, no, I got a specific reason now for me, there's a consistency there. So it's not just consistency of delivering or launching the episodes, it's also the consistency of the delivery and the content that you're delivering.
Yeah.
So like James, I like the accessibility expert. And I love the fact that you don't know it all, and that's what you're projecting. Yeah. Authenticity is really needed right now. That's what people want.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm not a very clean guy. I'm unpolished. I do direct, it's just, but that's what's wanted. People are liking it. They're getting the no BS direct questioning.
Well, and to get to where I'm at with like doing these video interviews, I started with making tutorial style content. That was kind of my entry point because people were searching on Google, trying to figure out how to use some of these accessibility tools, finding my videos. And now there's interviews that help them dive even further into that conversation, which as a individual with a disability working in the accessibility space, like all I want is people to understand how to design and create experiences to be accessible. And so if they're finding me through a tool video that I made a year ago, and then watching 3 other videos with interviews with other experts, that's done wonders in me networking and growing, but also the people that I'm bringing on and interviewing. They're getting people reaching out on LinkedIn, scheduling with their Calendlies, getting new conversations started, and that's very cool to be that sort of conduit of starting those new conversations with other people.
It's a great way to build your network as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
And I've been on probably over a dozen podcasts over the last couple of years, and being on your own podcast is one thing, but going out and being on other people's podcasts is a great way to cross-pollinate. And if you, especially if you share that avatar, I was on a podcast a couple of weeks ago called Disability Solutions, where we talked about employing people with disabilities. We talked about digital accessibility from a very high level perspective. And at the end or in the description, they're putting links to my social media profiles or to my LinkedIn, and people explore and cross-pollinate. And I think that's a fantastic way to kind of, if you're seeing a plateau, maybe venture out and try to get on somebody else's show, or bring somebody else's show onto yours, to try to sort of group and share the audience a little bit.
You're using other people's reach.
Yep.
So,
It's
like,
not
I've been
all
on a lot
about
of
the competition.
Right. Like, I've been on other professional type of podcasts. Like, in that group, there are some ADHD people, right? And if you're, just promoting and spreading the message, and then when you invite people on, I'm sharing my listenership with you, you might have some people there. That's a collaboration to a certain point. And it's a good point if you got a promo, other people's podcasts is a good way to spread it. Because I've had messages coming back. I heard you on this one, so I'm now subscribing to you, right? So
Awesome.
it comes around, but that takes time. Like, I just started season 4. We're getting close to 350 episodes now. So, but it takes about 3 years, no matter what it is, networking, whatever. 3 years is when things start to pick up. If this is what you want to do for a long-term gain or to get something out of it.
And when you say 3 years to pick up, sorry, James, when you say 3 years to pick up, do you mean like to pick up the audience size or to pick up like those engaged listeners?
Like,
you
now
talked about
good people are requesting to be on my podcast. I'm being requested to be on other podcasts.
okay.
I
So
kind
the
of have
awareness, you mean?
Yeah, an awareness. But I
Yeah.
think, like, even when you're networking, I learned a long time ago about the 3rd year. That's when you consistent networking. That's when your network will reciprocate to you. It just, this 3-year thing works even in business and the podcast, I noticed too.
Yeah.
But like
Do you
James
think
said
that's because of
earlier,
the practice?
consistency is key. If you're all over the place, then the listenership will be all over the place.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's a lot like when we talk about anything else online, that you're training your people to not be able to rely on you if it's inconsistent. If you don't have that sort of regular sort of piece. But I think that's I think that's really hard for a lot of folks to commit to. So so leading into the next question, then this is not actually one of the questions I told you guys I was going to ask, but this is how we're going. So if the consistency and the continuity of yours, and I think you guys have both started with a strategy. Oh, James, that's what I was going to ask. Andre was talking about, it sounds more like Andre's podcast started like a passion project. Would you say that's true, Andre?
Yeah, very.
So James, was yours a similar path, or did you always start with that? People are asking me this, and therefore I'm going to provide that answer.
I'd say kind of. So for me, I'm obviously in the younger Gen Z demographic. I'm 27. I grew up watching
Just kidding.
Watching live streams where people were making money, making YouTube videos, and live streaming on Twitch, them playing video games. And like, that's a very common like route that the youth want to take, is I want to be a content creator, I want to be a YouTuber. I wasn't really any different. I knew that that was for a very select few that put in the time and the work to do it. However, I've always been creative. I grew up drawing and painting and things like that. And so I would say as I started to get into accessibility, I started to get more comfortable with myself as a person with a disability, which wasn't always the case. And as I grew confidence in myself, I decided there's a lot of awareness that needs to happen. And so as a member within the disability community, I want to do my part to raise that awareness, to start those conversations. And so I actually started making short form content on TikTok. Got to, I think it's like 2,200 followers on there. Some videos that did really well, some that didn't do anything at all. Before I actually sat down and I was like, okay, content creation for me does work. People actually do listen. People do want to hear what I have to say, or what I'm learning, or what I'm doing. And so for me, it was a big commitment, because I do work 40 hours a week. Like, where am I supposed to come up with time to make long form content for YouTube, or how am I supposed to record and edit a video on top of everything else that's going on, work and personal life? And so for me, it was really puzzle piecing a lot of things together. But ultimately, what I settled on was I sat down and I said, okay, I don't have time to make these tutorial videos anymore, or I don't have time to research the technology and make a video about it the day it comes out. That's not really me. At this point in my career and my life, what I do have time for and what I always make time for is meeting new people and networking and having new conversations. And so I took that route and I said, if I'm not saying no to meetings, why am I not scheduling those meetings, recording them, and then turning them into interviews? And so that's kind of how I've gotten to where I'm at is looking at something that I do make time for and identifying that that was a route to get to what I wanted to do, which was share new ideas around accessibility. And I haven't done 300 episodes. I've done 5 over this year. I don't have near the frequency that I want to have yet, but I just recorded episode number 6. I have episodes number 7 and 8 scheduled out in advance, and those I make time for. I have no issue sitting down and having a half-hour conversation recorded, going back and editing and cleaning it up, and then putting it on YouTube and seeing what messages pop up on my LinkedIn from it, or what that person, next time I network and catch up with them, who reached out to them.
Yeah. So your conversations are generating other conversations, which is
Correct.
your whole goal, right? So
Yep.
that's perfect.
Yep.
But starting slow and small is ideal. You don't have to be, be stupid like me, where I was did 2 episodes a week. I'm just an all or nothing.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh,
all
Andre.
in, all out. So I got an interview on Monday, and then I do a reflection solo short on the Thursday. And I still don't understand why I'm keeping consistent, but if I didn't, I got the right balance for me to stay engaged and not lose interest. It's just an ADHD brain thing.
For me,
yeah.
it was
the content
all
is
about
fun for me, but my point is like James got a couple. There's nothing wrong with starting slow. You can change your frequency as you go, as you get comfort, or even your message could change. The best advice I got was your first 30 episodes are going to suck. Okay.
30? Yeah.
The first one is your worst one. So just record your first one, and you don't need to use it, but just record it. Just get over that hurdle. But the first one's going to be your worst one, because every other one is you grow. And then the best advice was the first 30 is where and how you're going to find your voice. It's going to take 30 episodes to find your voice and comfort. And it was about that number. And that, to me, that just gave me freedom to just, my first 30, this is the way my head thinks. Like, my first 30 are going to suck. Then I'll figure it out by 30. And it's true. It's, if I listen to a bunch, like I'll binge on podcasts that have good content. The first 30 are kind of a bit all over the place. And then after that, there's a consistency. So if you got that mindset to know it's not perfect, you can't have it right. And I think that's what a lot of people delay starting is, I want to be known as the expert. I need to know everything. You know what? Most people prefer experts. Experts just knows more than them, but they don't know everything. And what I'm getting feedback on is I'm constantly wanting to learn and improve what I want to learn. That's what they're following for. Not that I know it all.
Yeah. For me, it was all at this stage early on. I only have 5 episodes under my belt. It's really been about not forcing it. The accessibility conversation is a little bit more of a protected conversation. People without disabilities aren't very open to it in a lot of senses. They're whether they're scared of it, they intimidated by it. It's overwhelming. They don't want to be rude or offensive. There's a whole lot of reasons people avoid the disability and accessibility conversation. And so for me, it's really been, let's not force this. Let's let it be very natural. And when I come across a conversation that I feel like is worth sharing, I will schedule that and I will record it. One of the recent ones I did was on, we talked a lot in the episode I just recorded earlier this week on Braille. Because people assume every blind person knows how to read and write in Braille, and 90% of people who are blind and visually impaired don't know how to read and write in Braille. So there's a large misconception there, and I felt like that was a good conversation to have, to start that conversation and say, okay, if blind people aren't reading Braille, what are they reading? how are they reading and communicating? And so for me, it's been less of I'm using this to learn, but more of this I'm using this to help other people learn or start those conversations. And as going back to the expert and just knowing more than the next person, I've always lived by the concept that you only need to be 2 chapters ahead to be considered an expert. If there's 30 chapters in the book, you only need to be on chapter 2 because most of your audience hasn't even picked up the book yet.
And the analogy that was given to me is you're on a ladder. Everyone who wants to be in coaching or be the expert are always looking up to the person that's at the top of the ladder, but don't look down. There's people behind you, right? They need your help to get to where you're at. So that analogy really helped me as well. And that gets over the needing to know it all, imposter syndrome, and just say, hey, as long as I'm learning, I know a little bit more, then the people will listen.
So did either of you then, I think what I'm hearing is that neither one of you felt like it had to be perfect right out of the gate, because I think that does hold a lot of us
Absolutely
back.
not.
It'll never be perfect. My mindset is better is infinite. It could always be better. And I learn from every experience.
And if you don't start.
To be fully transparent, I record my interviews with Google Meet. I edit them with the built-in video editor on Windows 11. I am not using any high production software, nothing fancy. It's really just record it and get the conversation out there.
Nice.
There's nothing high production about what I do. I don't know how it comes off to other people, but it's not really about the video quality or how great the audio experience is. For me, it's more about is the conversation being put out there to be started.
Yeah, and I use the Zoom video. I don't do high production. My audio, I don't even get them to edit to take out blanks or if I mess up my wording. Because my theory is I'm not perfect. So if I mumble words, I'll go, okay, let me start everyone. And I keep that in because that's authentic and real. And to James' point, it doesn't matter as long as they can hear and listen and see it easy, it's the content if you're in for impact, if that's what you're in is for impact, the content will speak for itself. You don't need to have high production, spend $2 million per video.
Yeah.
Just whatever you pay on Zoom, upload it. That's all they want.
If you're not doing it for impact, Andre, what would be one of the other reasons for doing it?
Well, it'd be like a Mr. Beast where you're spending a lot of time on videos and playing all the marketing hook tricks and then spending hours to follow all the rules that the majority of people who don't really want to pay attention to the world want to follow. That's my take. So, cool. I take out stuff that I guess may not be comfortable stating, or if they're no one had an 18-year-old girl on. She was very, very nervous. So we had her to stop and restart. So we edit that a little bit. Or if there's some unnecessary F-bomb or a controversial comment or opinion, but very rarely. I just try to keep it raw and real. And my point is, I'm in the engineering world. We're all supposed to be perfect and do everything right. And I just show I can make mistakes and I'm not ashamed by it.
Carol Molita is saying, I only edit out if the guest wants to restate something or if one of us sneezes.
I haven't had that yet before the sneezing. That's a good point.
I always send my recording, the edited down version, to whoever I record the interview with for them to listen to and give me timestamps if they want anything taken out. Just to try to make it even easier on both of us. I took everything out that I didn't want in there. Now I'm sending it to you. You tell me what to take out before I put it up.
How long are your conversations, James?
What's that?
How long are your conversations?
So for me, I am, because I'm in the younger demographic, shorter attention span, listening to something for 45 minutes to an hour, I have a hard time doing. So I try to keep my interview somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes. I figure that's long enough for somebody to commute to or from work. That's about an average workout session. That's you're doing the dishes, you're folding and putting away laundry. Some of those sort of tasks, I tried to think about how long those types of things would take and structure the interviews around when somebody might be listening.
Yeah, my
because
phone-
I don't expect somebody to sit at their computer and watch me talk to somebody for 30 minutes.
I've got the
Tracy,
same
your
thing
pesky.
too there.
Oh,
20,
sorry.
30 minutes for the ADHD attention span. But at the same time, what I've learned, the longer content outside of a podcast structure or interview, or even an interview, people are consuming 1 hour to 3 hours of videos on YouTube.
And
As
I've
long
seen
as
them as
the
short as
con-
10
if it's the
minutes.
content they want, right? So there's a short attention span for something that they're not really interested, like they don't really overly care for, but people have a long attention span for something they really want to consume. So it's a tough balance to maintain.
Yeah.
Can I
I've
interrupt you
seen-
just for a sec? Sorry, James. Catherine, you were trying to say something?
Yeah, one of our members, Tracy Cherpesky, says, I do more editing for solo episodes when I trip over my tongue too many times. Otherwise, we only edit out on guest requests. We used to send out for production, but it was getting super expensive. We use Ophonic to make it more audibly pleasing, but we don't take out long pauses or anything like that. Natural speech cadence is important.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Nice. Thanks, Tracy.
Yep.
Sorry. So the short attention span versus binging on the stuff that they're really interested in. I like that you said that, because I think that's something that has really changed. And James, you've probably seen this too with the web design thing, that this the buyer's journey has changed so much, like the way that people act and search for things online. Like we talked about the customer search behavior, how it's totally different now from what it was even 3 or 5 years ago. And there's all of these different ways that they get their information, and they tend to want to be able to engage, like do a lot of research. They're a lot savvier, than they used to be. And so they want to find out as much about you or your whatever it is that you're offering well before they actually reach out, to directly engage. And so the things that we're hearing are things like, that they need to be able to binge that content, like 7 hours of your content, whether it's through YouTube or audio or a blog or, whatever. So is that something that when you two are creating your content, is that something that you're keeping in mind, like this ability to allow people to do whatever they want? Like I know, James, you were talking about setting sort of a limit, like a time limit, a length, which I think is great, like in terms of thinking ahead in terms of how people are going to access the content. So I think that's really cool. Do you do like different lengths of things? Like, do you have different approaches for different types of conversations?
Yeah. So usually like the tutorial style videos, those are like 10 minutes or less. Like you want an answer, you want it now, you want speed. You're trying to solve a problem now, not 3 hours from now. So I do tend to make that content shorter. The shortest form of content is me asking questions and trying to engage back. So trying to open up that two-way line of communication of what assistive technology do you use as somebody with that's low vision? Those kind of questions directly to my avatar, whether that's a person with a disability, a person working in the IT space. Posing those questions are usually the shortest form of content, and then the interviews are kind of the longest piece of content where I've caught their attention and I've gotten them to a point of curiosity, and I'm giving them something to continue down that exploration pathway. Ultimately, my goal is to sit down for 30 minutes with them to continue that conversation. So I always try to sort of think about the way I create and publish content of if somebody is interacting with me one time, what's their perspective going to be? If they're interacting 3 to 10 times, what's their experience? And from the marketing side, it's generally, I think it used to be 7 touch points to conversion, and now it's like 20 plus to convert somebody from like first time viewer, listener, visitor, whatever that is, to purchase. 21 touch points. So you should try to at least give them that, whether it's in the form of a podcast, an email, a page on your website, a Instagram post, a Twitter X post, a Facebook reel, whatever that is, give them things to sort of go through to learn about you and your products and your features and the benefits. They're going to do some comparison to competitors more than likely. Think about all of those things that are going through the customer's mind during that journey and try to sort of assist and facilitate them moving through that as seamless as possible. Specifically,
Yeah, nice.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's a very good point James has. What's the intent of your content will dictate the length. So if you want to do that quick interaction, it has to be short. Like I got my little thinking short reels on YouTube, sorry, brain fart there. The podcast has its own. I kept it to 20, 30 minutes from the podcast was to keep me in line. If I keep it that tight, I have to be more, I have to focus a little more on the conversation to make it succinct. Because if I made it an hour, you know how many tangents there will be? I wouldn't be able to follow it. So there's a bit of that was the audience, but also keeping me focused and to the point. I originally started with 5 points I want to discuss, but I choose 3 points that need to be touched on for the episode, and that's helps me with that direction. Now, the other thing too is the use of AI tools. You can go long as you want. Like if I'm like you, James, 35 minutes or more, I got to schedule time to listen. But I started doing 2 times speed. So I can do an hour now to half an hour, even videos. So people do that. But at the same time, if we have a 4-hour conversation, I'm going to put those up with people because I got a couple tools where I use. I don't even watch the video. Here's a tool. What's the summary? Where are the key points? If I'm interested to learn more about the intricacies, then I'll watch. So people are consuming it in that way. So if you don't have, who cares about how long it is? Because the tools are there.
Yep, and some of those tools can take your long form content and turn it into those 30-second clips for YouTube Shorts or TikTok or Facebook or Instagram. So you kind of transitioned us into the AI conversation. Somebody said it takes super long or it costs a lot of money to post, edit, and produce, and to go through a 40-minute interview and get a 30-second clip out of it. Use AI. There are a ton of tools out there to help you generate captions so that you can upload an SRT file and make that audio experience accessible to somebody who can't hear. Who's deaf or hard of hearing. You can use AI to clean up the audio and the video in the long form, and you can use AI to create those short form clips for you. And some of those now actually directly integrate to social media to where it creates the clip, it writes the caption, it finds the hashtags, and it posts it for you. So you can really speed up a lot of your post-production work all the way through getting it onto the social media platforms using different AI tools for different things.
Yeah, I use Opus Clips. I think it's opus.ai. So I can take any video and it'll clip it and check the how viral it could be. So if you're doing an interview, it'll take a clip. You decide 2-minute clip, 1-minute clip, and it also gives you the caption, but it actually tries to check how viral it can be, and then you're just reusing the content, right? And that's a really good tool. I don't need to hire an editor to go through, listen through all that. It's just boom, download, and off you go. And that does have an option now to just push out to social.
Yeah, the other one that I'm familiar with is called video.ai.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
I have Tracy Trapesky saying we have been trying Whisper Transcribe. We get transcripts and quotes. It's cheaper than Podbean's transcription. The social media posts, titles, and newsletter part isn't great, but we take the transcripts to Claude for show notes.
Okay, yep.
AI is a first draft. Doesn't do all the work for you.
Yeah.
It's
say that again. Feel free to say that again, Andre.
AI is first draft.
Thank you.
So I use Cast Magic. So all my videos and all my podcast episodes, I upload it because Cast Magic actually has one of the best transcripts editing there. Then it auto generates content based on prompts that I create or what they have. That's how I create my blogs, the first draft of the blog. And that's not cheating because it's just sticking to the to the file that's there. It's using my words.
Nobody said you were cheating, Andre.
Huh?
Nobody said you were
No.
cheating.
If I go to ChatGPT and say, write me a blog about this topic, that's cheating.
That's crap.
My content, what I actually say, because I actually do a lot of verbal recording of me just spewing out thoughts, and then have cast magic take what I said and write it as a first draft and get because I never realized that I went on so many tangents. So now I just freely talk my thought tangents. Then it says, can you make sense of this for me? And organizes it. And now actually I do little pseudo scripts from that. So when I do record my reflective shorts, it's a little more organized.
That's so smart.
It's just point form. I still free verse it out, but it's like the thought process has an order. Because a lot of times I start from the end, I talk myself to the beginning, and most people can't follow that.
So Andre, given the ADHD sort of focus, and how long have you been doing this podcast now? Because you've got over 300
season now.
Fourth season, yeah. So were you? I can't remember when ChatGPT came out, but it wasn't that long ago.
No,
so how did you? How are you managing that? Sort of like that must be a significant change for you.
It is. It's a nice brainstorming tool. It's what I realized. My brain typing is very, very slow. That was my hesitancy. And then what I would discover with podcasting, my head verbal, things are flowing out better. And then once it's out in the open, I hear it differently. And that's where the AIs come from. That's why now I record everything so I don't have to take notes and as many notes as I used to, because now I can use ChatGPT and ask the questions. What was important? Did they say this? Did they say that? So, and then from there, I've uploaded like all 300 plus of my episodes, and I'm going to take the last year, and you can, take 50 episodes, bring it up, and it's just ask, is there a pattern to the way I ask questions? Is there a pattern to what I'm constantly saying? I interviewed a bunch of people I interviewed for my engineering company, because I was tired of repeating the same thing myself every time. So I recorded 5 with permission. Then I asked ChatGPT, what did I say the same exactly in all 5 interviews? They say, here's a snip, blah, blah, blah. Now that's an intro video for people who want to come to our company.
Fantastic.
Right?
Yeah,
so there's lots of ways, but it's a first draft. And then for me, it helps me get things a little quicker or get my thinking. Like, I'm a very reflective person. I like to think things. So now I use the oasis.com, where that's just a random thought thinking. And then it's a smaller tool, but it gets it organized. That's where I get my pseudo scripts for the next thing.
I think that's really smart.
Your ideas, right?
Yeah, I think that's really smart.
And I use AI pretty much every day. I would consider myself an advocate, but a cautious one. I agree, it's a draft. And the reason I say that, I started my career in search engine optimization. Earlier this year, Google went through and removed like 40% of AI generated content from the search with one of their June updates. When you post content on most social media platforms now, there's a checkbox that asks, is this AI content? So if you're relying on AI to do it all for you, you're probably not going to get very far, because the algorithms, whether it's on social media, it's a search engine, they're looking for real content. They're looking for organic content that was made and edited and at least reviewed by a human being. We could, and it's very tempting. There's all kinds of promotion around there of, this is how I generate 300 social media clips in a day. Like, that's not going to get you very far. That might get you a couple of viral clips that get a couple, maybe million views, maybe a couple 100,000 views, but they're not going to turn into anything. There's pages out there with 10 million followers that get 1,000 views a video. And so you can't always rely on what I always considered and what I believe the industry considered as vanity metrics. Your likes, followers, and your that's not real metrics. Your comments and your messages and your conversions, those are what you should be measuring yourself against, which is difficult in a lot of scenarios because you can't always see those metrics for your competition. You can see how many followers your local competition has or how many likes they got on their last post. And we want to fall into that sense of comparison there. But that doesn't really translate into revenue, into clients, into things that are actually affecting or impacting our bottom line as a business.
Like the audience is getting smarter even before AI. If you weren't authentic, they wouldn't buy you. Like, and even more, I think if I'm not worried about other people using AI frivolously and lazily, because I think it makes a creative person more creative and a lazy person lazier. And your audience is going to see that if it's a real content or not. And like Tracy mentioned, it is helpful for ADHD types AI, but you have to be intentional. You can't just let it. You gotta be intentional. What is like, I got a notebook. Okay, I write notes, but if you're not intentional on how to organize your time, it won't help you. And last week I really learned something about AI. It doesn't know what you're asking. It doesn't know what it's spitting out. It just knows this is the higher probability that you will be happy with the answer. That's what AI does. And that's why we got to be extra vigilant. If you're like using AI for content, that you got an idea what you're looking for and that you have an idea that it's accurate or not.
So. Yeah. You have to have that oversight. That human editing is so key. And I can't imagine like someone like yourselves, because you're talking about this authenticity in the content that you're putting out there. And I think, the buyer these days is, like you said, Andre, we're smarter, we're savvier, we're also a lot more impatient, and we're not going to put up with all the BS that's out there. So all of that old school sort of marketing.
To that point of no more BS, correct?
Yeah. And that's great. But it does mean that some of these creators, quote unquote, might need to change some of their strategies. But I think you're right. I think you're both right around the AI being it's another tool, and provided you're using it with that intention, then it could be a really great thing. And if you just allow it a little too much free reign, then you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Well, word perfect. That's AI is not just what we know as the language models, right? AI is when words start to autocorrect your words, autocorrect your grammar. That's AI. So this is just a different way of tools, but we still need to know how to communicate in words.
Right.
So you can have the right word spelling of the words, but if you couldn't write the sentence structure.
And these podcasts, these conversations and these episodes that you're putting out are at the end of the day, they're creating more conversation, more genuine and authentic conversation, which is the whole point, right? So Andre, how do you then engage with a conversation? You may have already said this and maybe I missed it. But say if you have like an engaged, what is an engaged listener for you? For both of you, what does that mean?
Well, right now they're commenting on my YouTube or sending me emails. And then
so
the
they're
newsletter they're signing up for, and then we're engaging in there. And I started looking at it. Every email I got, I would guarantee there's at least 200 people that didn't message me that they're happy. Because it's not just one person that liked me. Like I start, I kind of switching my internal monologue here. If one person took the effort to write something, then there's got to be a lot more people out there that would. So I kind of measure that. Now, the other metric I use, I look at my downloads and I look for spikes, like big spikes. That means one person decides to download the whole library. I hit someone.
Oh.
Right. So I'm hitting a spike probably every 2-3 months. And then actually the one I actually go through, see which ones are downloaded more. And I just discovered episode 73 is being downloaded a lot lately.
Oh, is that right?
So I'm using that data to go, I'm going to talk more about that topic and I'm going to write a blog about it.
Okay. So you think it was something specific around that topic?
Yeah, it was just time management. So so you can start seeing a pattern what people are, and then that's if your titles are working. So yes, we're at the podcast. I got 4 years in, but now how can I better utilize titles and seeing what they're consuming? And then start looking at those patterns, and then now you can probably formulate a better way for people to interact more with it. And on YouTube, there's content or comments, so I reply back and get that conversation going.
So now that you've been at it for a while, you have enough data that you can actually start to analyze the data so you can make some decisions.
Yeah, I got a
Is
lot.
that kind of,
And I
yeah.
think even if you start off with your first 50, or like James only got 6, but you got a lot of other content as well, James. If you look
Mhm.
at it, what was the topic? Or who were your list? Like I started to notice certain guests were on had spikes. That makes sense if they're well known. Or if you start seeing a pattern of titles or even the time of year, even.
Oh
All
yeah,
depends.
for sure. Yeah. Oh, I like that. I like trends. I get a little excited about data. James, I'm sure you probably do too with your SEO background. Yeah, that's really cool. So then the next one of the questions was going to be around what makes your content specifically engaging and memorable. And I would have said, like, for me, I tend to lean towards anything funny, like sort of witty banter. I really enjoy that. So like one of my own favorite podcasts is actually two guys and they're chit chat back and forth. I just find it hilarious. And half the time I listen to their content and I can't even remember what the original topic was because I just enjoy listening to them, engaging with each other so much. So maybe that doesn't necessarily make it memorable, but it certainly makes me remember them and makes me remember even the name of the podcast, which is really, it's not common for me to remember people's podcast names. So with that in mind, what for both of you, maybe can you share what is something, I assume that you listen to other people's content.
Oh yeah.
So
Yep.
what are some of the things that resonate for you around as a listener? And then also do you then share those things in your own content?
For me, I think like going back to your question of like what makes the content engaging, it's your own personal unique approach. Everybody's going to record differently, everybody talks differently, everybody edits differently, everything is different, and so we can't just rely on that we're good at editing to stand out from the crowd. So for me, whether it's my primary audience, which are people that want to learn about accessibility, chances are those are not people with disabilities. And so that aspect of me as the creator is unique, that I'm talking from lived and learned experience. For that secondary audience that is the disability community, people with visual impairments, things like that, the unique is that I can speak the technical language that they maybe can't. And so there's different levels of engaging depending on which audience it is that's watching. Some people are going to like you because you're very calm. I've gotten comments in the past that said like that I'm very easy to listen to, just because I'm very calm, I'm very relaxed. Nothing is over the top like the rest of social media is. And I've also gotten comments that said that I explain things in a different way, even though it's the same topic that they've listened to 20 other times, trying to figure it out. And so I think the engaging question really comes down to you as the creator and how you connect with your audience. And now when I look at other people's content, when I watch other people's videos, listen to their podcasts, for me, it's kind of a mixture of the energy. I am very much a person that feeds off of other people's energy. And so if I'm listening to a podcast or an audiobook and the person really doesn't sound like they're into it, I'm probably not going to be into it either. But if they're talking about something that I'm interested in learning about and they have this sort of attitude or they're not explaining it well enough or hitting the mark, I'm not engaged either. I always give my wife a hard time when we go to the grocery store, when we go out shopping. I'm a person with visual impairment. I can't read the tags or the labels or anything. So I get very disengaged in those settings because I'm not having the same experience. And it's fine. I don't mind going to the grocery store. Like it doesn't bother me, but it's not the same experience. So if you're trying to create an experience and you're missing your mark or you're missing your avatar, they're not going to be engaged. Whether that's your energy that day, you woke up and you're having a bad morning. It's the time of the year. Seasonal depression is striking here in Northeast Ohio because we keep getting 60-degree days and then 30-degree nights. So there's a lot of factors beyond yourself that could dictate the level of engagement that you're going to get. I've made videos that I thought were going to do fantastic, and they get like 20 views. And then I've made videos that were took me 8 minutes to record and 8 minutes to edit, and it ended up getting 4,000 views. So it try not to predict what's going to happen to a T. Some of it is up to chance and timing and catching the right audience at the right time.
So here's a question. So I know we talked about vanity metrics before, and then Andre mentioned something earlier about these viral things, like trying to pick out things that might go viral. So how hard is it to try to not get sucked into that? Like how many numbers, how many numbers, how many numbers? Because if those things aren't really genuinely meaningful, because it's the actual engagement and the conversations that are created afterwards, then how do you keep yourselves how do you scale back a little bit so you don't get all wound up in those numbers?
I think it's just a level of intention. I have like every social media that you create a page on is going to try to feed you metrics. And you have to have a little bit of self-control to not check them every day. I check my YouTube analytics probably once a month. I check my TikTok insights once a month. So I'm not completely ignoring them, but I'm not obsessing over them. The comparison that I would give is somebody that goes to the gym and weighs themselves before and after their workout. One 30-minute workout is not going to make that much of a difference, but doing it a 30-minute workout every day for 30 days, and that's where you're going to see it. So I think it's the timing. It's a timing game of how frequent are you checking and reflecting and reacting to those metrics. Andre sees a spike, he's not going to go jump into a studio and record a podcast just because things started to go upwards. He's waiting and seeing where it peaks, and then he's going back and trying to reverse engineer what caused that. We do that with our websites. We do that with our podcast. You kind of have to react in a lag. You can try to sort of ride the wave and ride the high, but eventually you're going to oversaturate. And people are going to get burned out, and people are going to be tired of seeing and hearing you. And then you're starting to lose your audience, and you're dipping below what was your original baseline.
Yeah. But I think that would be
the peak is actually more, instead of worrying about the numbers creeping up, it was how many these spikes am I looking for? That's like, it's an impact factor for me. And in the end, for me, I'm doing the podcast and the content creation for me first. So it's interesting me. So that's why I don't get tied with the metrics. I want to impact as much as I can, but to start off, it's got to be interesting me. I'm looking at the data, but I'm not going to change the way I'm doing it to fix it so I can get it. If I'm chasing vanity markers, that would be the strategy I would use. But I'm at a place where I'm kind of exhausted the basics of a lot of stuff I've been talking about. So using that data, what's the common denominator or the common theme that people are downloading regularly? Now I can go pick that, go deeper. I'm using that as a launch pad to not just re-talk about it, but reflect on my past, where I've grown from that, or maybe I'll bring on an expert to talk about that and get, it's because it's interesting. If it was interested in that, then maybe what else can I bring to the table that I can learn more as well? But the readership, the metrics is tough to get out of, but in the end, like James got a good point. What you make the metrics are, that's what it's going to be. I think that came out wrong, but I think you know what I mean. The metrics is what you make it to be.
Yeah,
it can be addictive. Yeah. It's very addictive, and you gotta. I like that 1 month thing. I gotta tell my staff to just look at it a month, not every week.
Well, weekly, monthly, whatever the cadence is. Like I don't think looking at it a daily lens. I think you're too close. And I think you're too zoomed in to actually see the bigger picture. And it's great to have visionaries. It's great to have your detail-oriented team members. But to live in that space all the time, you're going to be constantly chasing the algorithm. You're constantly going to be having to adapt, and you're going to lose your continuity. You're going to lose why you started doing it, and you're going to start to do it because you want 10 more views than the last video. You want 10% engagement on every single video. You're going to lose that sense of why you started in the first place.
And I think you'll start losing your hardcore listeners.
Yeah.
They'll see
that
right
authenticity's gone.
Yeah.
That makes a ton of sense.
In the end, be yourself. You just be yourself and don't be something that you're not. And then you can't lose yourself. And you're not everyone's cup of tea, right? So I know a lot of people say, I love your content, but just you're kind of unpolished. So that's fine. If I'm not your cup of tea, that's fine. I'm not going to chase you. But there's a lot of people out there that like my direct, how I challenge some of the guests. I always get comments from these big guests that a lot of people know them. They're like, holy crap, you're really good at this interview thing. I can go deep, deep, deep. So I'm doing something right. And it's okay for people to not like your style. That's the other thing that people kind of get lost on. I got to appease everyone. You don't.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Especially not if you're focusing in on your niche,
Correct.
And I would say, Andre, I'd say your avatar is actually like your 10 years ago self. That's like your avatar, someone in that position, right? So I think it sounds to me like you're creating everything geared towards that person, and that's why it's resonating.
Yeah.
With those folks. And James, with the people with disabilities versus, the people around them, that community around like the families and friends and loved ones, that's a very huge vocal community. And I think, like having that, like when you were saying, like a lot of your listeners are people without disabilities. I think that sort of ties in with that kind of stat as well.
And on that point, I'll just throw in that you have to make your content accessible to those people. Andre, I'm sure, has listeners with disabilities. I know I do. I'm sure all of us do, whether they come out and tell us or not. Disclosure is not our choice, it's theirs. And so we do need to make sure that if we're producing audio-only content, that we're making it accessible through captions and transcripts. If we're making video content, that we're describing what's happening visually while we're talking, or we're including things like audio descriptions. We need to make sure that we're designing our content to be inclusive. Otherwise, 25% of your audience, whether they're the right person or not, is automatically out of the conversation.
Absolutely.
So we don't want to start with 75%.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Because you're already limiting yourself. And and I think a lot of us forget, certainly the people without disabilities, forget that it's not just like there's so many other factors around your listeners, or your, like for a web designer, your audience's context in the moment when they're trying to access your content, that can affect whether or not they're going to be successful. So like, I hate video. Like I hate it. And if your video doesn't have the captions, I never have the sound on. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm, at home and everybody's still asleep, and I'm like trying to watch quote unquote. And I generally I have video speed sped up. Like Andre was saying, I speed them up. Like these replays, I love replays because they're sped up. Love it. But yeah, transcripts and captions. And if those aren't there on the video, I don't take the time to turn on the volume and then figure out how I'm going to listen to it. I just don't do it. And so there's all sorts of user preferences that are taken care of if you design it to be accessible.
Yeah. Just 2 points there. Even people with disabilities prefer accessibility features like captions. I know a lot of people that don't have an auditory disability that use captions. Your accessibility features are not just for people with disabilities. Somebody could be in an airport and not be able to have their sound on. They're in a noisy restaurant watching your content. So giving them those options. But also accessibility is becoming easier within our content conversation, because a lot of the platforms where that content goes are starting to support accessibility features. Zoom automatically is captioning this call. YouTube, when you upload a video, you have the option to upload an SRT file, but it's going to automatically caption it for you if you don't. And so Vimeo, I'm pretty sure, does the same thing. And so Apple Podcasts, I'm pretty sure, automatically generates a transcript. However, I would err on the side of caution that those are going to be 100% accurate. I've tested some auto caption stuff with some large corporations, and the auto captioning spells the name of their company wrong in the captions. And that's not what you want to have happen. So if you're relying on those auto features for accessibility, do your due diligence and go back and check and make sure that the spelling is right on your company name, or if there was music playing in the background or off-screen sounds, like my dog start barking, those are part of the audio experience that need to be in that caption, in that transcript, because that's part of the experience. And with accessibility, our goal is to ensure that whether you can see the video or not, whether you can hear the audio or not, that you're having the same experience.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Steph, we're closing in at 10 after 2, and we wanted to leave a little bit of time for questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. See, this is why I need somebody to keep me on track. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Before we move into the question phase then, Andre and James, do you have anything to sort of like a little final, maybe, how about you give me your best? No, you know what, we'll save that for later. Why don't we go straight into the questions, unless Andre and James want to point out anything else before we move on?
Are you asking for a summary, or we're summarizing later?
No, we'll summarize later, but is there anything
I got nothing to say.
All right, perfect. All right. So James, do you have anything before we move to the questions? Okay, fantastic. All right, Catherine, take it away.
Well, I have raised hand by Carol. I'm just going to unmute you there.
Carol, come on out.
Hi. So I've appreciated the conversation. I wanted to, you were just talking about the captions and how that can obviously expand accessibility. Are you talking about for shorts or your social media posts, or do you all actually provide captions and say your interviews that you upload to YouTube, like your 30-minute, 45-minute YouTube videos?
Captions should be on all of them.
Okay.
So with tools like Video AI, I forget which one Andre mentioned, those tools actually have caption capabilities built right into them. And you've probably seen on social media the videos with like the colorful, extravagant captions that are popping up on the screen as the person is saying them, that those AI tools have those built into them. And on the long form content, YouTube does a halfway decent job, but there are tools out there like rev.com or is it Audacity? That you can upload a long form video, audio, MP3, MP4 file to, and it will automatically create the transcript. And all you have to do is go back through and tidy up some of the spelling and grammar.
Okay. Oh, the transcript.
Yeah.
Not the captions.
Captions or transcripts. The only difference between a caption and a transcript is one pops up real time on the screen, whether it's closed or opened. And a transcript is a text document. But the way you upload captions is with a text document called an SRT file.
SRT.
That has the timestamps of when it should pop up on the screen integrated into it.
And Cast Magic has a good transcript tool that you can get those SRT files to as well.
Yeah.
So it's not always.
What one was that?
I just want to make a comment about the captioning. For me, I have an audio listening, audio and brain catching up. I actually read lips. So the captioning helps me hear better, right? Yeah. And I don't have a disability according to the books, but caption is definitely required on everything, I would say.
Andre, could you repeat the name of that last service?
It was Cast Magic. I think it's .ai.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, castmagic.ai. You upload everything and it actually keeps track of your voice. You identify yourself. So I did an article, a news article. I recorded what I wanted to say. And they said, oh, by the way, you're Andre, the Impulsive Thinker. We wrote it in your style.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Neat. Yeah, thanks, Carol. Yeah, that's cool. You know what? So full disclosure, I've been using those automated social media captioning tools, and I hate them. But I thought I didn't even realize the SRT was the same for the transcript and the captions. I thought it was two separate things. So I'm so glad you mentioned that, James. That was great. Any other questions, Catherine, that we should go over?
I don't have any hands up at the moment. If anybody has any questions, you can also put it in chat and I can read it out to everyone. If anybody has any questions now, feel free to unmute. Oh, we have Zita Christian, my mistake.
Yes, that's okay.
Hi, Zita.
Hi, good morning or afternoon. I do have a question about how do you determine your first level and second level audience? I say, for example, I have a podcast called My Spouse Has Dementia. When I started the podcast, very clearly my audience was other caregivers, other family caregivers who, had a spouse with dementia. What I'm finding is, or what I'm questioning is that perhaps that's my second level audience, because frankly, caregivers don't have a lot of time. And perhaps my first level audience is more the professional services that that offer support to families who need help, whether that's a caregiving community providing aids or it's a counseling service. And how do I make that decision? Because I do think that would have some influence on how I shape the content of the podcast.
My first question, who's your avatar, your persona? Who
I'm
are you
sorry, say that
speaking-
again.
Who's your primary, who are you talking to? Who's your avatar?
Primarily other people like me who
Okay.
are caring for a spouse or were caring for a spouse with dementia.
So the secondary audience are all bonuses. I don't think you can be strategic on drawing them in. I think they will just naturally be drawn. As long as you're sticking to your avatar, the people who are interested in helping your avatar will migrate. I don't try to provide information to I like that term, secondary audience. I just focus on my avatar, my audience first.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yep, and I would say every once in a while, if you wanted to do a special episode for the caregiver, or I would say that's not going to hurt. It's not going to be anything super critical to deviate every once in a while, but don't try to turn your secondary audience into your primary audience unless the metrics are showing you that's happening.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
That would be
when
like
I
a
started
pivot.
sorry, I just want to go, but like when I discovered my accidental secondary audience, like that was presented to me naturally. Every once in a while, I would kind of target a conversation to help them, but it was every once in a while.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's kind of like it would be like a pivot, because you'd be shifting your messaging away from that first group.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it sounds to me like that secondary audience might use very different language, different words, even, like literally different words. And it might really change the way that you deliver your message.
In that scenario, I would probably recommend starting a second podcast.
Yeah, if you're going to go down that road, but like what I've done is I'll take on someone who worked with an entrepreneur with ADHD. What was their experience? But I was pulling out their experience for the entrepreneur's benefit of learning. So the tactics they were given, so it was kind of 2-in-1 feature every once in a while, but you gotta stick on the path that you have. Everything else is bonus.
Okay. Thank you.
Nice. That's a great question. And good luck with it, Zita.
And Zita, that's a great, awesome audience, because there's a lot of people that no one understands what you're going through, and that needs to be out. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thanks.
So we are nearing the time when we wanted to do some closing remarks, but if we had maybe one more question, we could take that. If anybody wants to sing out or write in the comments, go ahead. Failing that, we can move on to closing remarks.
Okay. So, well, I didn't take a whole lot of notes this time, but I think that this has been really cool. What we didn't really get into yet was around doing any kind of like how you tie in your podcast to your paid services. So specifically, like, like it's like not in a salesy or kind of gimmicky sort of a way, because the goal with I think what we've sort of landed on is that these podcasts are an authentic way of connecting and attracting new people to sort of generate these new conversations. So we didn't really get a chance to talk about how then do you introduce this new loyal listenership to the idea of, like maybe becoming a client down the road.
But quick answer from my part is if your podcast is named or branded in the same way as your business that offers those services or those products, I think people that come to you and want to learn or want to continue, they're naturally going to discover your brand the more they engage. And so for me, my YouTube channel is my first and last name. My website is also jameswarnken.com. So if somebody searches me outside of YouTube, they're probably going to find my website first that has the accessibility services that I provide. And a lot of those conversations are people that come to try to learn about accessibility, realize that they're already working a 40-hour-a-week job and don't have the time or the bandwidth. And so that's where I come in.
Nice.
And so I've had people that come and say, I wanted to learn. I'm still interested. I know this is important. I just don't have the time to do it right now. Can you help me?
Yeah. So it's a part of your overall strategy.
Yep.
Right. Your sort of thing. Yeah. Andre, what would you say about that?
So the podcast and my YouTube channel, they're interviewing me and I'm not in the room. So if they're coming to me ready to be coached, they already know who I am and how I'm going to work. So that's why you got to be authentic. Like, this is how I don't change the way I behave. I might change the way I dress for certain things, but in the end, I'm me wherever I am. So this is who you're getting. And that's what they do. They're testing you out as well to see if you would be a good fit to coach. So maybe I'm not the right person for me to coach you, Steph, but you still want to consume my content. That's good. And that's what I see. It's people are better engaged and understand you better when they show up. You don't have to play that first date type of stuff. Tiptoeing around. That's what I've seen as a benefit.
A fantastic point.
And like James is saying, I'm the Impulsive Thinker. That's the website. Like, that's the only email I have now, even with my engineering. So if you're working around the brand thing, people will naturally gravitate to you. But the goal is, what's the purpose of the podcast? What's the purpose of the YouTube? What's the purpose of a social post? Is it to go to the website or go to the podcast, or just pick one? And that's your goal, to get them to there, to do whatever your next step to get them in the funnel. That's simple, the simplest thing. And that consistency helps you deliver the message easier. And you don't have to be on everything. Just because there's 200,000 social medias and there's a bunch, you should just pick the ones that you like. I don't like it. I just never went on Instagram. I refuse it. Apparently it'll do me wonders. Nah, I just don't. LinkedIn's enough for me. YouTube pushing my limits until I get a better rhythm, but there's nothing wrong with it, right?
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said for, like, you need to have some exposure and you have to, spread yourself out a little bit, but there's no point in going to those places if your people aren't there.
Exactly.
So Andre, if your people aren't on Instagram. Yeah. So that's super interesting. I love this talk about consistency and continuity. I think that's so important. And so many of us, jump into these things because we hear that it's like the next big thing. Like, like podcasts now are what blogs were, 10 or 15 years ago, and everybody's doing them all of a sudden. But there's no real, I don't see a lot, at least with the clients, a lot of the times, the potential clients that we talk to with website work, the podcast that they're doing it because somebody said it's the way to get out there. It's like another thing.
But here's the other thing, there's podcast fade, or pod fade, they call it, right? Yes, everyone's doing podcasts, but the average only hits 12 to 16 episodes. Then there's nothing.
Ah, yes, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
Mhm.
that's why the consistency's there. Most people think they can get rich quick off of podcasts. Just,
Yeah.
it's like the Field of Dreams. Once you build, they
Right.
come. No, they don't.
Yep.
That takes time. It's relationship building. And that's, I guess that'd be, I'm gonna finish with that myself. Podcasting and the YouTube channel is, you are building a relationship with the audience. So you can't go, suck them in or convince them on the first couple hours. It takes time, especially with the content I talk about. It takes a lot of people time to admit that they have a mental health condition, or that they're shy, or that they don't want to talk about things that's been bothering for a while. So you got to create that safe space, and safe space takes time. So if you want this to be rich quick, have at her, waste your money. But that's why I say, go for impact. That's a relationship building. Be authentic. Do what you want to do, how you want to do it. The rules don't make sense to you, screw them. Just do what you feel is right.
That's awesome. I love that, Andre. And I think, and I loved how you were talking about that timeline with the 3 years. I didn't get a chance to ask the other folks here on the call, but I was curious about anyone like Zita and anybody else who actually has a podcast now, if that 3-year sort of time frame was something that you've also found, because I think it does take time, because you have to practice. It takes a while to get your rhythm and your stride, and to really understand who that avatar is. Like, you might start out thinking, and then things kind of evolve, right, over time.
Yep.
So yeah, so that's cool. Zita, did I see your hand up?
Yes. I
Yeah.
just wanted to say it's been just about 3 years. I have 2 podcasts, and it's just about 3 years for the dementia podcast.
Yeah.
And last week, I was contacted by a reporter for U.S. News and World Report who had read a transcript from one of
Nice.
the episodes. He's doing an article on being alone for the holidays, because I had done an episode about my first year being a widow, because
Oh my
my
goodness.
husband had died. And so he contacted me, and we had an interview, and he said he'll send me a link when it comes out, and it could be as early as this week. I've
Oh.
been on the cutting room floor before, though, so I'm not counting on it until it happens. But still,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had the interview had it not been for the podcast.
That's right.
Oh,
and can I just say, yeah, and can I just say, so he got a transcript. He didn't listen to the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
No, I don't know. I don't know for sure if he listened to the podcast, if he read
Okay.
the blog post, or if he
Interesting.
read the transcript. I don't know. I
Or
just
you
know
could have
he
been
I picked up on
referred.
that.
You could have been referred, someone who heard
Yeah.
you. That's
Yeah.
the beauty of all this.
Yeah, that's
Hey,
right.
James, do you know, Steph, do you know someone who's really good at accessibility stuff? I know James. I've heard his podcast. I never did. Right? Based on conversation, I'm gonna ask James when I get out of here to be on my podcast to talk about this in the workplace, right? This
Yeah.
is what this is all
Absolutely.
about.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
has
that's
been
awesome.
great.
Wonderful.
Nicole,
Well, that was really
Nicole
cool.
has,
Jane, oh yeah, sorry.
Nicole just chimed in and said she has a new podcast and she feels she's already caught her stride. But she
Ooh.
thinks maybe her journey is a little atypical.
Who
Yeah,
knows?
congratulations.
We'll talk
though.
again
That's great.
in a couple of years, and we'll see how you're
Yeah.
doing. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Congratulations, Nicole. That's really cool.
We're at
Yeah.
228 here.
Oh, fantastic. James, do you have any last comments you'd like to make?
Oh, no, I just thank you for inviting me to join in. This is my second one that we've done together, and
Yeah.
both times has been a lot of fun and really good conversation. Hopefully I was able to add to it. And if anybody wants to follow up on the accessibility conversation, that's what I do. So feel free to look me up and reach out. I've never said no to a conversation.
That's fantastic. I wouldn't expect you to say no at all to a conversation.
No,
That's wonderful.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it. I really appreciate both of you guys for coming on today and for sharing these sort of insights. And we got a lot more in depth with the tools and stuff than I expected, but that's fantastic. I could see a few people scribbling notes. And so that was really great. And so just as a reminder, anybody that is here today, we have a part 2 coming up, and that'll be December 4th, same time. A different group of speakers, because we couldn't fit everybody all into one day. And I really encourage you all to come back and join us again for December 4th, and there'll be an email coming out with your link and stuff. And thank you again for your time. I know it's 90 minutes is a good chunk of time, and but this has been a really fantastic conversation. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Nice
Thank
to meet
you.
everyone.
Cheers.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.